So it's like new trends on right now as well. Like, you know, like the fairy tale, like the three or like the kind of thing, like that will be still while like the remaining entirety of the remaining fairy tale skip numbers are absolutely on the like Lucy alone being sad, like I'm thinking that new will be due to that kill still Lucy not being able to get over that kill, specifically on seeing that when while Lucy will be like seeing like all the fairy tale kill numbers like that with joy, like still Lucy will be also seeing like the completely destroyed uh, fairy skill base as well as like the fairy skill members themselves as well. Like even while they are like celebrating like all the injuries like that like most likely each and every single one of them should be having right now. Like basically we're really seeing all that like all this being because of her. It's definitely my observation. So like lithium thing would be still even after everything like the fairy skill members like have told Lucy that the parents still Lucy will be still might have definitely not being able to like, get over that guilt and that would be the solution for like this is so like the name right now itself like I'm doing without created at all like I'm doing that. So like from a Lucy point of view, Lucy would be thinking that basically definitely as long as like it's this like Lucy would be knowing how extremely wealthy and powerful her father, like her career concern is like I'm different definitely Lucy would be fearful for like the future of like the heritage guild as long as like Lucy is part of that guild, with them because like certainly Lucy is everything that like Lucy would be like knowing her father too well that basically Lucy would be absolutely certain that basically even though the heritage guild this time has defeated like the kind of guild still like her father definitely won't be giving up and like her father would be like without maturity they would be like paying another kid to like once again launch an attack on like the terrorist to that destroy the terrorist to them forcefully take Lucy from them. To be along the lines like Lucy would only think so like Lucy would only think that like the next time like even though this time like Lucy would think along the lines like this time even though it was through the team of like still Lucy would be only thing that like this time that the field members might have something got on that week would be along the lines like Lucy would be thinking that if not for like Matt House showing up at like the last moment like the parents guild members the entire guild might have been totally done for would be along the lines Lucy is the right one like the person will be feeling so like it is like macro as well as like extremely age old like immediately like Lucy would be totally absolutely would be like afraid of like the future of this good as long as like Lucy is with them. So like I'm saying that uh like definitely I'm going to say Lucy. So and that so like I'm saying Lucy's mindset right now would be to like for Lucy what Lucy should be feeling as like the right thing to do right now would be Lucy would be feeling as like that she should definitely like remove herself and leave from like the heritage and leave the heritage for like the safety and protection of like the heritage would be like the line to Lucy to be thinking. Lucy to think that the next time another guild attack like the heritage guild to like take away Lucy, like the heritage guild and Macro might not be as lucky as they had gotten this time around. Like luck might not favor like the heritage guild every time. Right. So like I'm saying, the last thing Lucy would want will be for like due to her like basically not only like the guild base like on top of like the guild base even if they are able to stack like once again we can destroy like but also like the entire guild members like getting eliminated so and including Namsul I'm happy getting eliminated solely due to like Lucy's presence in the guild. So like I'm looking definitely Lucy would be right now just right to like totally even though with that absolute heavy heart and absolute reluctancy and absolute sadness like still Lucy will be probably seeing as like probably right now seeing as like the right decision being uh, that would be what Lucy will be feeling to like basically leave the fairy tale permanently and go back to her father hunter is definitely what like Lucy will be would be like what Lucy is strongly feeling right now. So, you know, I'm considering Lucy saying exactly that to like macro that is really that she definitely wants to leave like fairy tale is could be along the lines Lucy would be saying once again to like macro and like macro would be straight away telling Lucy will be getting it might even get angry towards like Lucy at that point it's like the scenario that I'm good and macro telling Lucy that basically the guild will always be fine as long as like the guild members stick together like basically and fight as a team to protect each other like the guild would the Paradise guild would never die off would always live forever. We along the lines on the different like macro at that point telling and giving that confidence and comfort to like trying to like give that confidence and comfort to like Lucy. So such a diagnosis like the scenario that I'm given. But still, I'm the like the scenario to be in like the middle of that, but still I'm going to still won't be that convinced even with a micro saying all that is like the scenario that I'm doing. So like I'm just like not to, with that absolute intent to like save her girl like I'm looking like in like the middle of that very night like I'm looking like Lucy like stealthily sneaking out of her phone and I'm looking like Lucy totally like without saying a word to like any of like the guild members like without any of the guild members finding out like I'm looking like Lucy like totally that getting into a train and basically suddenly heading that way, making it all the way to that the home of her father, like Arcadia comes out like basically that way. Like the moment Lucy enters the home of like her uh, of concern, like at that point, Selva was from like concern straight away will be acting in an extremely rude manner towards like Lucy because like by then like concern would have heard like the news about like the like this like this like the part of like the heritage still like basically attacking and destroying like the guild that he had paid to like basically get Lucy back. So like I'm thinking that there will be that have to raised within like concern at that point. It's certainly monitoring but like as it like concern thing that he would have to like music even think it would be along the lines of maybe like in an exchange road and in a successful manner like I'm looking like concern will be like an update music and I'm looking on top of that like concern would be like feeling embarrassed about that would won't be even at all proud about like Lucy being part of the parent but also would be feeling embarrassed as for like music being part of like the heritage. So like I'm thinking that might definitely exist like other gifts of like royalty status or like noble status. So like I'm looking like so like those would be like definitely different gifts that I'm looking for like that music part of that concern would be only seen in like higher regard as like definitely my brain. So while like the heritage skills which would, definitely doesn't have such a status would be that a skill that like I'm looking like as a concern like music part of would be looking down on it's definitely one brain. So definitely like I was going straight way like concern totally most likely even locking Lucy up straight away like the moment she will be in for example home at that point September to like concern locking Lucy up in that some sort of like the person that we met would be a bit inside just like that personality that so like definitely understanding that concern wouldn't even care at all about like Lucy. Like the only thing concern would want would be like I'm typically one of friends about two positive like either it being like through Lucy that concern trying to like uh trying to execute like a political marriage. That's one possible scenario that I'm looking at. Another possible scenario is for like through Lucy like concern might right now have like an opportunity to like make Lucy turn Lucy into like a compliment while concern would be having some sort of lack of situation which would be like preventing concern from being able to like be a concern or but still concern would be like a threat for all that power that like powerful position of like and the power he will be getting like if he gets like the position of like being a council member. So like so he can't be he will be in like a situation where things that won't be able to like be council member like they might be planning on using Lucy to get Lucy to become a council member and then while like Lucy would be and to turn Lucy into just like by his intent would be to like just have Lucy as like a placeholder council member while he would be taking all the decision and basically just to that and giving all those decisions as like that absolute power to like Lucy and that way force Lucy to like execute according to each and every single one of the decision that way like indirectly him trying to like inherit that indirectly him trying to like see that power of like become a council member. It could be either one of these two possible reasons possibilities that I'm also bringing up for like why concerned right now. So badly and really want like Lucy back, especially my considering a person that I'm sitting on. So like my preparation for like regardless of whichever among these two possibilities according to my preparation concern will be trying to like enter onto like Lucy like I'm going definitely use this straight away like rejecting like straight away refusing to like listen like personality that I'm looking for. So like at that point like I'm looking Lucy would be telling confirm that like she would like stay at that country's home and that will never go back to that the fairy tale skills that for concern would be along the line Lucy will be telling concern, but like she still can't agree to that concern and what that concern will be trying to like force Lucy because it's a member it would be one of the two possible scenarios definitely will trend because like that would be too much for like of like something that like for Lucy to like only listen and would be like Lucy would be having like her own definitely Lucy because like it will be totally against extremely against like Lucy's own ethic. It's definitely my friend. So like this is straight away refusing to agree to that concern. Getting listen to that concern and that resulting in like concern getting extremely angry with like Lucy and another like concern causing a lot of suffering to like poor Lucy. Like the scenario that another like still regardless of all the suffering and concern inflicting injuries as well on Lucy, like the scenario that I'm so, like regardless of all just like all the suffering like everything like Lucy still in her like in present kind of like state like would be still desperately refusing to listen to the concern of like the scenario that I'm people. So like it will be at that point where like Lucy is actually like suffering to like the extreme that I'm suffering like the fairy tale film members like Macro would be like breaking down like the raw to like Macro along with like the fairy tale film would be like and I'm looking maybe like not the entire way it's not showing up like maybe I'm looking like it will be just like the group of like Macro, Natsu, Happy and Gray and Upsa alone like this much fairy tale film members alone like maybe I'm so to bring Loki as well see along with that also like a that so like this much like target guild members alone like breaking down like and it will be definitely macro that will be breaking down the top to like front of like consumption and that will be like macro an angry macro like storming it and basically like the first thing that macro and all of them will be seeing would be that sometimes like causing the suffering from its suffering to like losing like the scenario that I'm doing. So like at that point the people like extremely enraged macro like storming in towards like concern and basically holding concern by this like fallout like the scenario that I'm doing. Yet like I'm doing like macro will be extremely enraged and might want to like attack concern but still macro be preventing himself from doing so solely due to like the factor that like concern is like Lucy's father and so like Lucy is so conscious to like macro and like definitely I'm like solely due to that reason I don't like macro not attacking concern but like macro will be like totally bring out this like powerful aura and then like with that absolute with the staring right into like the eyes of like concern and with that absolute intimidation like I'm doing macro like intimidating concern and like I'm looking like macro telling him to totally stay away from like Lucy. Lucy not I'm looking macro telling concern that like Lucy is not your president thought anymore. Like Lucy right now is like the path and like the derivative skill. That is not for right now. Two step along the lines of the macro in an extremely angry and intimidating manner, like telling to a scare concern at that point while holding on to like concerns for like the scenario that I'm available. And like then macro shouting toward like Lucy as well. So would be like macro at that point then like launching some sort of like an attack that will be instantly destroying like the two stage like in person in which like which will be put into certain like confront forms that you know strategy. So like macro but like a simple attack itself like destroying that two stage and like this is straight away coming out and basically macro with that absolute seriousness and anger like telling Lucy to like get back to like the favorite would be along the lines like Macro would be like shouting at like Lucy. And at that point after the like Lucy will be finally come Lucy at that point will be finally even though it might have definitely I'm presumed something it would be an extremely reluctant and painful manner that like Lucy even without telling anyone one moment thing in such a scenario where like Lucy without telling anyone would be like still in the middle of the night would be leaving the favorite at her home and like the fairy tales will be and like will be taking a train and will be going up to like Kanchan's home like and still it might have been in an extremely painful and extremely reluctant man like the Bluetooth might have done that. Exactly it was not that so like I'm looking definitely like this will be that final like that last thing that last push that Lucy might have needed seeing Macro like intimidating concern and basically like basically and telling him to like stay away from like Lucy. Like that might have been that like final push that Lucy might have needed to like feel secure and safe with it being part of like the fairy tale, it definitely will do it. So like with that, like I'm looking like Lucy is totally with like a nervous mind, like Lucy looking at like macro and like Lucy totally running along towards like where like Nancy and all of them would be like staying right there and then all of them like heading back and then like macro giving more of like a step towards like concern and like eliminating concern even more and basically still without attacking or injuring concern like macro leaving that concern home is like the scenario that I'm looking at. That way like the fairy tales will all uh back and joining with like everyone and is Ruthie as well back with like the fairy tales is like the scenario that I'm looking at. And from that point on I'm just looking like maybe for like the scenario where like at that point I'm just like finally that which doctor woman like like she would certainly be able to like back of wife is stepping in and training about this like none of it but is never to be even aware of technical training. So those are by then like another thing like certainly her from even from like a remote distance like she would be able to like sense like everything that's like going on with like the third. So like I'm looking like after like so like I'm looking the macro bringing Lucy back and basically the fairy tale will all back together. Basically like deciding to like rebuild like American macro telling them that like now our next that their next target to like rebuild back their fairy tale will get and time they are going to like rebuild it even far more stronger and tougher than their place was before. Maybe along the lines like macro everything and at that point I'm looking bring like maybe like that and still in maybe showing up or like I'm assuming maybe them still staying still is like the other possible scenario that I'm looking. Anyway, like I'm looking that for situation I'm trying to be far too tempting and wholesome for like that which doctor woman who like basically due to some definite past trauma linked to that back when she was part of like like some sort of like a that experience of like maybe betrayal or like something like that, resulting in like the resulting in like someone precious to her, a guild member that might have been precious to her, or like multiple guild members that might have been precious to her, like getting eliminated and like the past, like that kind of like a scenario might have been what resulted in like her like basically deciding to like always stay hidden in like that forest like away from like this many civilization. It's definitely going to bring it. So like I'm bringing like still able to bring like this whole current situation with like a matter of saving Lucy and basically bring back Lucy and like, all of them deciding to like rebuild back like the it is days like even strong and like all the situation and the brain like will be becoming like so extremely tempting and wholesome that for like that doctor woman that like I'm doing during then like I'm doing like even though they would be planning on like rebuilding back their heritage will face like even tougher and stronger like of the Nintendo would be like kind of like hit totally blank at that point and will be like trying to like figure out how exactly to um figuring out like how exactly to like properly do it. So like I'm looking like at that point I'm looking like maybe at that point like that is the woman like maybe making her connect the entrance and I'm looking like her telling them that giving them like the exact idea for us to like how to like properly do it and I'm looking with their help. Like I'm looking maybe the guild members all working together according to like her plan. Uh, or like I'm bring her even drawing like the blueprint as well. Like her coming up like the perfect blueprint to like build like the ultimate new like upper where it will be so like a regular and in that way with like made up help like everything where it will be guild members like all of them working together with that as teamwork and rebuilding back their guild base tougher than before. It's like the path upper than before like the scenario that I'm saying. And at that point like I'm just like uh she would be like saying along the lines of like her job is done and like would be about to like return back to like sub forest. But like I'm doing right before that like I'm doing like Nagaro calling her and basically telling her to like join like the guild, be part of the guild. And then when you it at that point maybe like her still not being able like hold on to her like rebellion to like basically they of like staying hidden in that forest and basically away from like guilt and all of that, which like would be something that deep down she might have genuinely enjoyed, deeply enjoyed at one point in her life. It might have been that past trauma, like kind of like a situation which might have happened. Might have resulted in like her, even though with like extreme reluctantly like her, like totally forcing herself to like stay away from like any guilt or like anything. or from civilization and everything. So like he as well would be like deep down will just fight for like human interaction and like to also be part of like a guild and everything. So like I wouldn't want to like at that point like macro would be calling up as she would be able to leave head back to like the pop like I'm putting in macro calling her back. At that point I'm becoming like her totally not being able to like refuse yet like I'm looking like her totally putting on some fake acting and then looking like her totally making some sort of like any because like I'm doing like her unbelievable like her getting kind of like extremely insecure at that point to like return back to like the guild to like so like I'm looking her making some sort of like an excuse for like of like a reason along the lines of the maybe her telling like Macro and like the guild members that they will be totally lost without her. So like basically that since they struggle with like building like the guild and everything that they will be totally overall they will be totally lost without would be around the lines of like an excuse that I'm using that stock movement like at that point they telling all of them and like only due to that reason that like she's going to be come back to like the guild to be along the lines in which like understood like how that the which stock movement is finally returning to like and being part of like a guild and like backing like the predators like the scenario that I'm also totally fine. So like I'm just still that even then I'm also like it would be like master macro himself that would be like the master of like the guild. So like I'm also bring like at that point like I'm also bring scenario to be like from like the council I like I'm also bring like officially I'm also bring like being like macro himself being like the master of like the guild. Yeah, like I'm also like in front of like the guild members and also like macro declaring that like from stay on like the guild will be having two masters that will be like macro as well as like stuff like the scenario that I'm also remembering. And I was bring like at that point like the guild members probably underestimating maybe like Natsu and also like maybe like underestimating like the stuff woman as so like basically even though we might have according to my information like I'm bring like her so helping them out in like a lot in like representing that like schedule based like I'm bringing them totally just telling it like she like that strong when it comes to like fighting skills and everything. So I'm also bring like Natsu that way maybe like challenging like that at that point challenging that was not performance to like a fight and I'm looking at her so that actually is like probably by only like bring out only a fraction of her perspective itself and bring her easily that absolutely is for you know, defeating Natsu and that way like I'm looking like or everyone who will be like all the team members who will be like watching that fight will be getting like instantly shocked and would be like that way like I'm looking like that is of the moment like asserting her dominance and basically give the guild member to like a taste of absolute a tiny taste of her absolute strength and like that way like that would stop from all define her position as like the foremost of me along with like macro of like the relationship. So like I'm present that scenario it's very happy like my person doing right now. There is a but new dreams right now have for like the Iron Dragon Metalicana turning Veggie into the Dragon player like I'm looking like it would number to bring that at one point it exists but like I'm looking like the Iron Dragon Metalicana as well as like Igneel, like the dragons that turn that help that Natsu turn into like a dragon slayer as well. Being able to like use strength like I'm thinking definitely Igneel as well as like Metalicana. These two dragons like different element based dragons like I'm thinking they might have been absolute great that's front back during like the distant past back when these two dragons were extremely young. Definitely not the same version. So and these two dragons like Metalicana and Igneel might have had that absolute towards like getting stronger. And I'm that way like I'm doing that eventually at this trying to work like I'm seeing this spirit target might have parted ways like with that absolute goal to that totally go the separate ways and train hard that and basically train hard and get seriously strong basically by themselves like by like exploring like the world and basically fighting all sorts of fights like for these two dragons to like train hard and get strong up and for like one day in the future for them to like totally return back and meet up at some point in like constant use of like they might have separate parted ways on such an agreement and promise and basically for them to like have a rebattle at that point in like the future and see who among them is like the strongest at that point. So like I'm doing that during Metallicana Dragon as well as like Diane Dragon Metallicana will beneath like extremely younger days like I'm doing, they might have always like fought between each other and to see who's like the strongest. So like I'm back then like the fight might have always resulted in like a fight. So like I'm doing that way, like I'm doing eventually they might have both split up and went different ways to train hard and eventually the promise to eventually meet up on that very exact location in elections can meet up and uh, basically to have that ultimate fight and see who's thrown upon among them. Might have been what might have happened. So like I'm from it might have been once Igneel might have went just separate way. The dragon Igneel might have went separate way to train hard. Igneel might have ended up in that forest where Natsu was left as a baby by Natsu's father. So since Natsu's father name itself is Dragonil, we still remember the mention that it might have definitely been Igneel, the dragon itself that might have even trained Natsu's father, Dragonil as well. Definitely remember it. So Natsu's father as well will be a dragon slayer and will be an extremely strong one. Currently even could be even far stronger than Natsu. Currently is definitely remember. So and definitely while the don't remember the reason definitely something Igneel might have definitely in Amazon Igneel ever since Igneel went missing Amazon in actually it might have been Igneel's attempt to protect and save Natsu Amazon some villain might have been come towards that location where Natsu was on finding out that basically about some villain who might have had this absolute enmity towards Dragonil might have found out that found out somehow that Dragonil something basically to basically should have had this for so definitely to eliminate Natsu I'm looking just this villain might have get it off to do that for so I'm doing maybe Dragonite might have been able to extend this as the villain was approaching and so I'm doing Natsu Dragonite I mean Igneel might have been able to set this one day. So I'm doing seeing this villain approaching I'm doing Igneel might have totally distracted the villain and basically might have taken the villain away from that course, a bit further away from a lot further away from that course. And I'm looking Igneel in that fight against that villain might have ended up dying. So because I'm looking that villain might have been such strong that villain might have taken the life of Igneel, might have been end up having that disembowels the new while in the case of Natsu's father, I'm looking Natsu's father might be definitely active father would be definitely alive even to Ragnil would be definitely alive even to the mountain day somewhere in the world. That's definitely one of the reference. So definitely. And I'm talking from maybe of the remote complicated maybe it might be true that maybe after Natsu's father Ragnil having found out about beginning that maybe it might be at that point that maybe enough it might have been Ragnil Natsu's father Ragnil might have been the person that might have given some sort of a secret message and communicated somehow with macro, remotely communicated with macro and might have told macro have sought help for macro to basically to take care of Natsu. And basically that might be how macro might have maybe ended up in the in that force and might have found Natsu, a young Natsu might have been what might have happened in the past is one possibility that I'm looking at, especially basically in the past macro has recently macro's past macro analysis past was revealed the scene was revealed where macro tell Natsu if Natsu's okay with the fairy tale skill basically during Natsu while macro introduced Natsu to the fairy tale skill and all that so especially at that point definitely it kind of appeared to be a need for macros to have Natsu to that's the fairy tale skill that then so that would join the fairy tale skill. So I'm wondering that might have probably so I'm wondering it might have been all due to Dragneel being so such a great front of macro. Maybe it might have even been in the same gear that macro might have been in wisdom path during macros back when macro was a whole lot younger in the guild in which macro might have been back then before parents will that other guild which I'm looking in which macro might have been in which the stopper woman as well might have been a guild member as well as dragon as well might have been a guild member Stephanie and Travis. So I'm thinking eventually that guild might have gotten the plan so sort of new information but so I'm thinking it might have been dragon in request to macro to take care of the natural that might have resulted in uh, macro okay, maybe going up to and Dragonil might have told macro as to like where Natsu was like and evolution like that way macro might have gone up to that first and basically might have totally that way like might have totally eventually taken it enough to like separate it to that into being part of the reserve. This might have been what might have happened. But remember, like I'm like actually Natsu's father, like Dragonil might definitely be alive, but like the exact reason for like Dragonil according to my information, like staying away from like Natsu might be solely due to like there possibly existing like far too many extremely powerful villains that will be after like Ragnir to eliminate Ragnir is definitely one of the pyramid. So like Ragnir will be like it will be so like it will be solely to like ensure like Natsu's safety until like Natsu grows stronger and stronger to like the point where like Natsu will be able to like safely defend himself from like uh from all these exceptional villains like while like Ragnir will be certain of that like Natsu having reached that level that it will be only at that point that I'm going to like Ragnir will be like hoping to be able to like see Natsu again. It's definitely going to in actual game, but Ragnir might definitely genuinely and badly and desperately want to see Natsu and basically Ragnir would be like out somewhere like the world living his life while totally missing Natsu and might badly want to like see some Natsu. It's definitely not right. But like I'm saying, Ragnir might have also told us it might have been also part of that request that Ragnir might have told to like macro that basically to get Natsu to be part of like the territorial skills and like nourish like Natsu like potential and basically so that like Natsu could like eventually be as strong as like Dragonite is. Or so that like Natsu could even surpass Dragonite. So like and Dragonite might have told Macro that like he has that he has that absolute firm belief that like the son of Natsu would like eventually surpass him in strength and skills and everything. Would be along the lines like Natsu I mean, like Bragnell might have told macros the human thread. So, like, until then, to like take care of like Natsu, just be along the line uh, of like the request that Bragnell might have made to like macro through a remote manner, like through communication through a remote manner, might have been what might have happened. Like, this can also the human thread. So, like, this would be what like macro we are right now trying to do. Concerning Natsu, the human thread, macro to be even seeing Natsu as that person that who will be like eventually leading like the fairy tale, that single person who will be like eventually leading and become like the leader or like eventually become like the master in like the builder of like the fairy tale. So be along the lines of like the man of which like matter would be like saying now this is definitely one of the ramp. So sort of one of the ramps right now is that basically that Iron Devil right now with this also dying about like him not knowing where like the Dragon Metallica and I definitely one of the ramp. When in actuality I'm also like the situation with like the jail might be that like in like Natsu's case like I'm thinking that not like Natsu it's like so fond of like Igneel, like I'm might have been like the very same case with like Gajeel as well. During that Gajeel like younger days when Gajeel was like training with like the Metalicana, definitely one of those. And back then like I'm from Gajeel might have been totally different person and might have been like genuinely kind person. It's definitely it might have been only since like Gajeel might have joined like the fan feel that like all the things might have happened to like Gajeel and all this villain might have happened to like Gajeel. It's definitely one friend. So like I'm just like unlike the different terms of different might be when compared to like Igneel and Natsu might be that while Natsu even in the presence might be that consideration Igneel might have died long back the minimum trend so like while Natsu even though the person might be not is not aware of that like might be the case like in the case of like Gajil the difference would be that Gajil might have shockingly witnessed that Gajil might have been exactly like Natsu Gajil as well might have been totally back then might have been totally fond of that uh, piece of like Metalicana. It's definitely one of the impressive. So like definitely and I remember like exactly like in like Natsu's case like Gidil as well might have lived with like Iron Dragon Metallicana and Metallicana might have been like a power figure to like Gidil back then. It's definitely one of the but like the contrary to like Natsu's case like in the case of Gidil like like Gidil might have witnessed like the death of like Iron Dragon Metallicana. It's definitely one of the impressive. So it might have been maybe I'm looking for like a remote possibility of like maybe it being like the same villain that might have eliminated both Ignite as well as like Metallic and as like one remote possibility that I'm looking for. So that happening through sheer coincidence so like I'm looking for that and so like I'm looking like me that and that Metallicana might have definitely exactly like in like Igneel's case, like I'm looking like Metalicana, like the similarity, one color similarity in like Metalicana is as well might have been like since the complementary mission, I'm looking like Igneel might have uh, ended up uh, that getting eliminated while trying to like protect Natsu. And those different like about which Natsu won't be aware of. Like I'm looking like it might have been the same thing with like Metalicana as well. But like in the case of Gajeel, like Gajeel might have witnessed that. Like Metalicana trying to like protect Gajeel. That and I'm looking like Gajeel, even though he might have been extremely sad, some of the individuals might have totally listened to like Metallica now and might have totally escaped at that point of the film range. But like I'm from like a distance, like he might have only seen that villain, that Tosi taking the like of like Lion Dragon Metallica now. Might have been what might have happened to the film range. So like with that absolute clear like we might have kept on running, might have escaped and like that run of Gajil might have eventually ended up with like Gajil eventually throwing up and basically without having no one and identifying that might have been what eventually changed that this is from judges like personality and character and everything that way like, like eventually once like Jose might have at some point might have seen Jesse the villain's character of like Jesse like at that and the strength of Jesse like everything at that point I'm just like Jose might have seen Jesse like that absolute like absolute as like this absolute perfect like skill member. Gazelle has like having the absolute potential to be like the perfect skill member of like the kind of kid. So like just like the other point that I'm looking at like how Gazelle might have ended up being part of the kind of build is also like so like basically I thought the permission I'm looking for right now regardless of how much like Natsu will be asking Gazelle about like Diane Dragon and like the Dragon Slayer magic and everything like I'm looking like Gazelle not even revealing anything at all to like Natsu right now. It's like in like the scenario that I'm looking because like uh, the memories about like the Iron Dragon Mechanicana and like the Dragon Slayer magic and all that the that past of like the film might have been an extremely tragic and painful would be even to the present maybe remaining as like an absolute tragic and painful memory within that Vijay's mind which like Vijay might have been really trying to forget. So like I'm hearing being that absolute villain might be like the solution that like from Vijay's point of view Vijay might have found in that totally to numb his like pain and basically to it's definitely to forget about all that. It's definitely remembering. So like about those like painful memories might be what like Nasu right now asking the so like I'm certain definitely regardless of how much like Nasu like it is I'm preferring like scenario to be like they be totally ignoring like the books and not revealing anything at all to like Nasu. Anything much at all to like Nasu's like the scenario that I'm doing. And on top of that, like really even getting angry towards like Nasu for asking so much about like uh, the Iron Dragon and like Metallica and everything. Like the scenario that I'm doing it. Also, like the team of Grimms right now for like the all seven is lined up like year 1 7 and like day 7 and basically with like it being like 77 years since then like I'm looking like definitely I'm looking like exactly like I'm looking like the dragons like the dragons or it would just be like beginning as well as like Metallicana but like all the dragons out there in like the world of like the fairy tale. So like I'm looking like all the there will be all sorts of unique and different kind of like great number of dragons, powerful dragons across like the world, across like the entire world of the there's definitely a grand effect. So like like these dragons like I'm thinking like they will be having like the number 7 will be having an effect on like the powers of these dragons and will be having an effect of like the on like the people close to these dragons as well. It's definitely one of the temperature. So like I'm looking definitely one of the temperature that like the number 7 would definitely be having like an effect on like definitely on reducing like the powers of like these dragons. Definitely when seeing those these dragons will be extremely powerful, like I'm bringing their powers will be like getting reduced on like the days there is like 7 and basically like the more the 7th would be like in like whether it's like month or year like basically the more 7 there would be like that much would be like the greater the reduction of like the strength happening on that during that very time alone like for like all the dragons across like the world especially so like I'm looking like the reason for like if you need as well as like Metallica and these two dragons like disappearing on that very day that 7 years back. Like I'm looking it might have been actually I'm looking like it might have been due to like Dragon Age, especially Melodred. Because like I'm looking like Natsu's father Igneel might have been like funded by like so many great number of villains out there, especially in the Natsu's father might have done all sorts of things like it might have been like generally good things, but like it might have been that about which neither the council nor anyone might have been able to properly understand what's happening with it. And hence like I'm doing them sending out like a great number of like these villains which have might have been sent to like basically to bring down and capture Dragneel. It's definitely memorable. So like I'm doing things like Dragneel as well according to memorable enough to sort of Dragneel as well might not have been a dragon player, right? It might have been naturally, it might have been like a sort to like find Dragneel that when consulted it might have resulted in like these villains like who be like even though they might not regardless how much they might not have read it up for like Ragnil, like they might have not been able to like, find Ragnil. Yet like these villains might know might be easily aware of like where all these like dragons are like basically were like about like all these great number of dragons that are the world. Their locations and everything. So like I'm looking like them totally like and often like these dragons to like disappear might have been like maybe like their attempt to like basically to capture dragon in to power in alone is definitely membrane. So like I can remember for like these villains like things like they will be totally knowing that they will things like for the membrane like dragon will be like a dragon slayer and things like things villains might be well fully aware of this like something that definitely they might have felt that basically eliminating like the great number of dragons out there. Like one of those dragons might be that the dragon that might have thought Dragneel would be stood and gave Dragneel all the trained and gave Dragneel all this power that you think Dragneel will be close to the human bread. So like I'm thinking during that day that when all these seven had lined up on that very day, like I'm looking like while according to my memory, like on that very day, like the power of all the dragons across like the world would be like greatly reducing of that single day. Like I'm looking like on that very day itself, again, like the villains might have made and might have started to like capture all this like dragons and basically like the world and to like cause like to like eliminate them by causing a lot of suffering. I think that that's good attempt to like basically hoping that like dragon is that might result in that dragon is shortly showing up towards them not having like such for like dragon is to like find and get the dragon is, but like dragon himself that has good face like basically showing up towards them towards the villain to like get revenge on them. And as for at that point for them to be able to like capture dragon, it might have been their plan. Definitely, this might have been the reason for like the disappearance of like Dragneel and Metalicana exactly 7 years back happening. Depending on and it might have been sitting remember the mention that it might have definitely been not only just like Igneel as well as Metalicana, but like as like Natsu's journey progress something different like once again in like days having like the number seven on it like something different like days or days having like the number seven on it, like I'm looking like even in like future days that will be having like the number seven on it like I'm looking like exactly Natsu will be getting more information connecting to like Ragnir and that Ragnir or Igneel like some scenarios that have to bring. So that's like the scenario that I was bringing. Like I'm doing on those future cases like the number seven like the system also sort of like now to in this journey like constantly managing ending up running into like different opponents or like different individuals who would be also exactly Dragon Slayer and who would also have the very same sort of backstory to like share about like them being trained by like their unique dragons, which will be a totally unique dragon with like different elements with powers, but like their dragon as well doing music on like the very day of like seven of the date of like the year 777 and like month seven and basically there's just like the scenario that I'm describing. So like basically and I'm preferring it to be exactly I'm preferring the place to like that to and ignite for two extreme enemies like basically to even fought against each other so much like basically them right now only in like the present day you know like basically exchanging like information since like it has already been revealed that like the various skills have like their fights and issues with like I think with, like the fans even in like the past like since like the face the skills were like totally familiar with like the fans the like, still the fact that like it was only in like the present day that exactly 7 years after Ragney and 7 years after like Igneel as well as like Metalicana and like Dragon Iron Dragon as well. Then you think that like right now we like the percentage. The fact that it's only like the percentage alone that like Natsu and like Gajeel have an actual sort of would be having like an actual proper stock and like since it's only through that stock only right now that like Natsu has stock and Natsu as well as Gajeel has so we found out about that then their similarities not just being like reduced to just the two of them being dragon slaves alone but the fact that those two dragons that trained them, that basically had basically gone missing on like the very exact same day, like Igneel and Metalicana. So like basically that even finding out on the very day as well will be connected to like the mysterious powers of like the seven aligning of like the seven is definitely member right. This will be only affecting single member it will be definitely affecting like dragons as well as like people who are extremely close to those dragons as well. It's definitely my personal opinion, right? So like the movement parameter right now for like the current mystery of like the 777 like the number seven alignment as well as the connection to that Igneel as well as of that like it's like I'm sure this would be exciting now to definitely present giving that upload hope and like that's a bit of the feeling that right now that he has something to work on to like find Igneel like they didn't spend that time like I'm something like now to my thought of that basically he was like probably closely searching for Igneel but like right now because like with like the connection between like even though Natsu doesn't know what the connection is like since like still like the fact that like there's some connection Natsu being aware that there's some sort of like a connection between like the number seven and like the dragons like I'm going to would be totally exciting and bring about that absolute joy and hope within Natsu of like being able to like eventually find Igneel through that focusing on like the number seven with the along the lines Natsu kicking the mirror so like I'm just like on like every time that naturally keep in track of like the days from this point on with that absolute focus and then looking like on every day that there would be like the number seven in it like whether it's like 7, 17 or like 27 like on every single day there like there will be like the number seven in it like I'm like regardless of like the month like I'm looking now to I think so extremely excited that I'm when it will be going those exact days that I'm looking like from this point on I'm doing like now would be like setting off like would be like not taking up any other third job. Like I'm doing that day like the day put like the number seven in it like I'm doing like now would be telling macro straight away like I'm doing right now till without this related and it's now telling macro that basically that's to need like a day off like a holiday for now for like on every day that has like the number seven in it. If you're along the lines of referring to without even telling macro, it's like the scenario that I'm doing. And like I'm looking like straight away, like I'm doing macro would be someone who secretly would be totally knowing about like the connection of like the number seven and like the dragon. Definitely my energy. So like I'm doing like macro would be totally maybe kind of feeling a bit of insecure as to like basically not to look like the possibility of like that of that group that realization was like really happening like macro at that point when Naku will be even saying that self that like Naku's like slowly learning things would be along the lines macro will be feeling something so definitely still there will be that side of like macro who will be like probably feeling sorry for Naku as well and then maybe like that way macro that allowing Naku to like basically to like have that holiday by macro will be absolutely certain that like on first they exactly put like the number seven in it like that will be setting up in search for like Igneel. Definitely the results absolutely like that totally regularly happening like if things totally working out for like now so even though in an extremely slow manner like I'm living like and I'm the scenario to be like from stay on like now on every single day that will be having the number seven is like now setting up along with like Lucy as well as Happy and maybe along with like today and or like along it just being that the team of like Natsu and like Lucy and Happy along like that will be that setting off on like these days with like the number seven in it in such for like close connection to like Igneel and I was like on some days like I was going like Natsu getting like in the close on the beginning of that day itself, like, and then like on some days, like it would be like the scenario I'm trying to be like not to only searching the entire day for like clues, but like I'm looking like not to not getting any clue and like I'm looking it will be like when not to be only feeling to be extremely disappointed and sad and like losing all that hope and will be on his like way back running to back to his like career days like I'm looking like at that point on his like way back being when like I'm looking not to be only unnecessarily getting some sort of like a clue connected connecting to beginning or like dragons in general. It's like the eventual scenario that I'm looking for the right. So like this happening in like an incremental, like increasing manner, like I'm looking like slowly like now to getting more and more clues and I'm like it's only being like a puzzle to like the extreme unknown situation as well, like where Igneel is like I'm looking at not to like not to journey from this point on being like a puzzle where like not to each tiny clue that Natsu will be getting something like either Igneel or like connecting to like dragons in general, like I'm looking like uh, Natsu's journey, like Natsu fitting all that as like tiny pieces to that huge puzzle as to like the as to not only where Igneel is, but also as to like the question as for like what happened to like all other dragons as well that went missing on that very same day, but like those great number of seven had aligned is like dealing with scenario that I'm looking for the Pranayama operation. And luckily, I'm looking like by the time like Natsu will be like feeling that puzzle. I'm looking like on that very day that Natsu will be finally feeling that puzzle that I'm looking it will be definitely a day with like the number seven in it as well. Definitely number which so definitely on that very day I'm looking definitely I'm looking possibly being on that day like I'm regardless of like whether like Natsu and Jadil have a reunion even before that, like I'm going definitely on that very day where like Natsu will be finally killing that puppy that I'm looking like Natsu will be definitely running into Gajeel, definitely not the relation. Maybe not only Gajeel, but like all those other dragon players of it that might exist out there who might have also like lost their dragon on that very same 7-7 day back in like the past, like I'm looking like 10 years back in the past, like I'm looking them all like only by sheer coincidence uh, by this like by the situation which might appear to be lecture confident like I'm looking for those like dragon players that follow like the word that basically that ended up running into each other on that day that could be like feeling that puzzle is like making that puzzle is like the scenario that I'm saying. That is like the scenario that I'm doing. And it will be on that day, on that very day that like I'm doing like them to be finding out that basically Unbelievable then all finding out that like all of that wagons out in was like eliminated even back then in that distant past like during that day that had like the uh, during that year 777 that on that day 7 like basically all of that wagons were like eliminated by this like exceptionally powerful villain they be along the lines of and like, on that day in the capitals of while all of that wagon players of the world will be running into each other, like them totally finding out. And then something like then that ultimate battle to like eliminate to take the to our power and defeat and eliminate that ultimate villain that coming from that happening during that very day. Which will be also having like the number seven in it. It's like in the scenario that I was going to frame. Well, it's a lot of new trends right now. So like I'm not totally fearing right now that as for like the current damage through like the fighting against like presidents that angering like the council and the differently the like each and everything for like the future after bring like the scenario to be like each and every single time like the still to be like having a fight definitely will bring more and more construction up into like the nearby areas and everything and also like eventually this spiraling into like I'm learning like more and more council members getting like irritated against like the failures. There's like the scenario that I'm looking that way like I'm looking like eventually in like the future I'm looking like eventually I'm looking like the council members feeling as like they're totally fed up with like the failures here and they are like care and with their carousels that like popping all that discussion and everything and like I'm looking like the council members like finally like feeling as if like they did have like cross all the limits and all of their limits and basically that way like I'm looking them totally declaring like the fairy tale guild no more as like an official guild. It's like the scenario that I'm doing that way like the fairy tale guild getting kicked out like getting like cancel like from like the official registry of like the list of all the official guilds like that is getting removed as like the scenarios that are delivered. So like I was doing that way, like at that point I was doing like the council members who did only expecting like the heritage guilds to get disbanded at that point. It's like the scenario that I'm doing. At that like at that point I'm considering it also macro losing its like position as like and at that point I'm considering like in fact like macro is still alive even at that point I'm still macro losing not really like the birthday still getting cancelled by like the council as like an option field. But like I'm considering like master macro also losing its like title and position of like the one of like the wizard thing. It's also like limited ambition. So luckily all this happening and I'm like the heritage still not being allowed to like stay and like that way at that point like the heritage is still being in like Magnolia as well that possibly that's being destroyed by like the orders of the council by like armies like the scenario that I'm doing. So like I'm thinking like that way like I'm from like the heritage still and I'm thinking the macro like macro is alive or like if macro like it ends up like in the war back and still I'm looking like whoever would be like the new master of like where at that point like I'm really regardless of that whoever who would be like the master of the where at that point would definitely telling the guild members to like no to not stop like the duty of like the army of like the council like the scenario they will be destroying like the heritage at that point. Guild base at that point is like the scenario that was like at that point I was going now to embassy and all of them would be like standing outside like the base like totally in an extremely like disturbed manner like I'm meaning them to like the future once again witness like their guild space getting destroyed. And that time it being through like the orders of like the council definitely was the embassy. So yeah, like I'm doing regardless of whether it's like macro or like some a new master that will be like at that point like the master of the heritage and that person definitely won't be like the spanning like the heritage field. Like I'm doing like that person at that point telling like the heritage field that like they would still function. Like the heritage will still would continue and they will still function, but in an unofficial manner, like the heritage will would be still uh taking would be help will be taking up like without job without like without asking for like reward money because like because of them not being official here like them still would be like taking up without jobs and doing without jobs like in an unofficial manner without like accessing reward money like basically in an independent manner, like the heritage skill, without being part connected, without having any ties to like the council, without being connected to like the council, like in an unofficial manner, like the heritage skill would be still functioning for like the help of and of like the poor and needy, and well, that will be along the line something like the master at that point will be like telling like the heritage skill member. So like I'm sort of yeah, like I'm sort of think like due to like the official reasons like they won't be able to like have like their skill base in like Magnolia or like any other city like and considering like the scenario to be like the guild moving to like the force. It's like the scenario that I'm proposing. So like maybe it being at peace force that like I'm looking like deep within like each form or like within like some other forms like I'm looking like the fairy tale will basically setting up their base like their new base at that point is like the scenario. Their new base of like unofficial service in like in the scenario that up. That way I'm considering like the surface is even in like the symbol of now getting disbanded, but like working in like an unofficial manner. Still I'm considering like even at that point like the things are like regardless of whether it's like macro or like any new master that will be like the master of like the website at that point like I'm doing still even though in an unofficial manner like at that point continuing to like they still would be like working like still I'm doing like so like that way, like that master like doing the order to like not accept any reward money for like doing taking up any research job, but like to do it as like an absolute service, selfless service, and basically still during that master of like the heritage skill at that point, like to step down the heritage skill at that point, would be still brilliantly figuring out ways to like still make money to ensure like the survival of like the guild and like the guild members, even if it's through an unofficial manner. It's like the scenario that everything that way like the heritage is like the unofficial heritage will like still finding new ways to like make money and like basically for like the guild to like still survive and keep going on in like an unofficial manner. even to like the people is like in the scenario that I'm moving about it right now. Even the like the prevention right now for like Nara right now telling Natsu that like he can't escape from like the room nights that I mean definitely like during that to be like about foreshadowing of like eventually like the very distant future like Natsu actually that the room nights like army felt like trying to like capture Natsu and like Natsu actually escaping from like the room nights is like the scenario in the percentage of that encoding. So like the magic that the room nights used to like right now like the person contain and stop Natsu from escaping that ambivalent will be solely due to like that staff that each of like the roommates the long staff that like each of like the roommates are holding like basically the fact that there's like a bluish kind of like a ball on the end of that staff like that either that bluish ball or like what will be contained within that bluish ball in that staff might be like some sort of like a unique and extremely rare magical item, certainly memorable, which would be like an extremely powerful magical item, which would be having like, the power to like prevent like the escape of like any disaster, especially magical right. So like those staff would be of like the Roman knights, which would be like each of them would be like each of like belong to each of like the Roman knights will be so extremely powerful, extremely memorable. So definitely again, like I'm looking like in like instant future, I'm looking like the same kind of like scenario where like in like instant, but like I'm looking like it would be like a in like an extremely serious situation, like the very distant future where like an actor would be definitely having to like escape from like the own night, or like it would be like a scenario where like if Natsu doesn't escape, like the own night's army would be like tracked by like the own night army, like basically according to like the council or like the distant future, will be trying to like eliminate Natsu. So like at that point, like Natsu getting cornered by like the Romite army while they will be holding on to like their stuff and using that just very same current magic to like prevent like Nasu to escape and Nasu be getting caught by that magic. But like I'm feeling like it's that different reason like Nasu like totally like it's like Nasu having no other choice but to like having that absolute desperate need to like escape and survive like I'm feeling like certainly because like during that time like I was feeling like some other member maybe Teen Lucy or like some other member of like Lucy or like some other member of like the will be in some extreme danger. So like I'm like even more than like for like Nato surviving and saving himself, like I'm looking like it would be that extreme situation where like Nato will be having somewhere some specific location to like get to, to like stay that like participant of like Nato, like I'm looking at it will be due to that situation kind of like a scenario like I'm looking like while the room knights will be using this very same current magic using that stuff and like with the locking Nasu like and like with their magic like at that point I'm like Nasu like unleashing some sort of like an undimensioned and dragon slayer powers from within like Nasu and breaking that trap of like the room knight magic and like that totally shocking like the room knight just like the scenario and Nasu escaping at that point. With like the scenario that I'm looking. So like it looks like a scenario that I'm looking totally happening in like the very distant future. But like the current dialogue of like Marai to like Nasu that like Nasu can't escape from the Sabo Night might be a foreshadowing to that scenario in like the very distant future, especially in the range. I would say like the premise right now as for like I do see expansion of that writing the left way her mother and basically thinking about like concern while remembering that this like about of it be like a rice board on the floor like I'm just definitely it might have been actually an incident that might have happened during like Lucy's childhood especially drinking what might have happened might have been like Lucy might have back during like Lucy's like younger days like I'm different Lucy might have been someone who might have been extremely passionate about like the big especially on brain so like I'm looking like and one day like I'm looking so like Lucy would be like always like attempting to like with her exploring with her cooking skills and everything, trying to like better her cooking skills and everything, especially when previous. Lucy back then might have been extremely passionate about cooking, especially when everything. But like I'm looking like one day like concern might have seen like Lucy cooking, so like I'm looking at that point like concern might have gotten extremely enraged with like and I'm like towards like Lucy because like from concern's point of view, what concern might have said to like Lucy might have been that basically that like she's like royalty or like she's like a noble and basically that like concern might have told her to like never do that again. That's definitely one of the average. So like the like other different concern might have told Lucy that like food would be like uh prepared and for brought to like the dining table uh every time like whenever Lucy needs but like Lucy should like a royalty or like a noble like I'm looking at that along this line like concern might have told the Lucy that like would never so along the line like the thing like concern might have tried to like enforce it onto like Lucy, but like considering Lucy might have doesn't think like Lucy's that such an absolute passion for like Lucy even back then, so you know the image, but like considering like Lucy still might have definitely disappeared concern and with that would even after that like I'm like that's extreme scolding and threatening from concern even after that like Lucy might have still they uh, still they tried and in secret might have tried to like might have tried to keep cooking and might have kept on cooking and tried working on her cooking skills. So, like at that point, I'm just like what concern, and then even after that, like concern might have found out about it, and I'm thinking like at that point, like an extremely enraged concern, what we might have done might have been like at the home of that concern and Lucy, in which like concern Lucy and like Lucy's mother had lived back then might have been like extremely huge, like a palace, like near friendship. So, like they are like I'm like concern might have built a huge case for like Lucy to put Lucy in as like the punishment. So that, you know, so like they are like something like concern might have only put Lucy there and basically yeah, concern might have like told Lucy that like this is like Lucy's like punishment for like disobeying him and like cooking for like Lucy cooking. It would be along the lines like concern might have scolded Lucy and might have threatened Lucy and basically concern might have told Lucy that like he would only let out Lucy from that case only once like if that Lucy agrees to like listen to like concern and never to cook. To get along the lines concern might have tried like and cook just like roll on to like Lucy, especially when the end of the Lucy. And another thing might be during then that by concern might have forcefully like put Lucy and might have put Lucy into that important kind of like state into that case that like I'm like Lucy that like a right spot it might have been on that very day like and what Lucy might have been Lucy might have been like a right spot but like I'm that right spot that Lucy might have been putting that then during that day with that absolute passion and love like I'm like Kantam might have lapped it out of like Luffy's arms and then pushed Luffy into, might have pushed Luffy into that steel case. 90% Luffy might have been what might happen. So like Luffy might have, even though the person might have definitely not forgotten that painful memory of like basically watching that like fight sport that she had made with that absolute passion and love and care like lying on the floor while like basically Kantam might have only like definitely outside the case might have been what might have happened in like the past even referring to be what like maybe like a person right now remembering and like seeing as like what appears to be like a whiteboard with like a smiley face or thing like we can be lying on the floor. It's definitely my injury and fraction right now. Also my good impression for like at that point like after like posting concerns possibly having like put Lucy into like that to still stage like concern might have given the order to like the entire of the mates in like that shows kind of like or like that they really for none of them to like give any food to like Lucy. So like until he says so would get on the lines like concern might have given the order to all the mates. So like in that way like concern might have realistically forced forcefully put Lucy into that such a situation where like Lucy might have been like trapped within that cage while that right wall might have been right in front of like that right wall that Lucy had made with that after pattern might have been right in front of like Lucy outside of the cage but like still Lucy might have definitely not been able to like reach it but like Lucy might have been starving at that with same time badly within that cage and then the like concern might have totally locked up like Lucy's mother as well in one of the rooms as well. The remember frame and because like Lucy's mother definitely since like looking into the present is like probably like a efficient manner is like a writing like to her mother like definitely Lucy's mother might have been like a single and kind person if you get like a considering concern villain simply might have locked her up as like she was like trying to like get put towards like Lucy and might have been what might happen. So like something like something might have locked up and I'm like something might have according to like something order like Lucy should be only be let out of that cage only like Lucy promises something to like never cook ever again in her life might have been down the lines like something might have uh given the order to like Lucy's definitely but like Lucy might have totally objected and basically that way like Lucy might have made to like been put in that cage and might have been forced into like need into staff, like minimum like I'm something like Lucy might have like basically staff for like a few days basically, and until like Lucy might have felt so extremely exhausted and tired, and like the pain of hunger might have been far too extreme for like Lucy that and everything that after like maybe 3 or 4 days might have been when like Lucy might have finally given up, and basically that due to that extreme pain of hunger like Lucy might have finally given up, and like Lucy might have totally like shouted out for like for remaining energy she had like a bit like Lucy might have like shouted out towards like a maid that might have crossed that area and might have told her that basically to tell concern that basically she has given up and basically that she won't ever cook again. That we get on the lines on the like for Lucy might have told to the maid, and the maid might have given gotten that news towards like concern right then might have sort of towards like the case and might have made Lucy forms to concern that like she will never take again. That new entry. So like I'm looking like that way it might be only through that promise that the concern might have then let Lucy out of that case. That new entry. That concern might have even told Lucy that maybe that Lucy even breaks the songs even once like I'm like at that point like I'm looking like definitely like that concern might have threatened Lucy that once again he will be like taking Lucy back into that very same cage and basically would be like forcing Lucy to like into staff even for greater number of days. In the along the lines of maybe the concern might have threatened Lucy. So like that fear might have been like early in still within like uh, Lucy all the way back then. He's definitely going back when like to like allow and definitely going and this might be the reason that fear and that trauma might have resulted in like basically for Lucy since then like never like following her passion of like cooking, never cooking since then. It's definitely my friend. So like I'm looking like since then it might have been only once like Lucy might have ended up like basically right now like the person like once like Lucy had like her own home. Like basically had got her own home with like the money she made from like the job and everything like it might have been only once like Lucy right now have recently bought her own home that like Lucy might have finally been able to like once again cook in her life with the human might have once again felt safe and might have been able to like cook in her life with the human friend. So like I'm like in like the person like Lucy might be so happy that like she's able to like cook again and basically she might be thoroughly enjoying doing so. It's definitely one surrender. Yeah. Yeah, like I'm sitting right now with like the recent phantom skill scenario fight and everything like I'm doing. So like that it was due to like concern which like since like Lucy believes that like I'm looking like Lucy will be only once again having all the like painful memories from like the past like flowing into like Lucy's mind right now, watching into like Lucy's mind right now, and that there will be that absolute uneasiness of like a next feelings within like Lucy's which like like Lucy still would be like hiding well from like everybody else with like the girl that is like the scenario that I'm looking at like I'm not very ambitious because like my comprehension that like since like from Lucy's point of view, like since like Lucy knows like concern far too well like I'm the Lucy, even though like they have currently managed to like pull through and Lucy has defeated like the Spanish League and everything appears to be that back to like normal and still Lucy will definitely having that uneasy feeling within her solely due to like her knowing her concern like far too well how realistic could like only get that like Lucy would only deep down we have that feeling that like concern won't be just giving up just because like they took down like the fantasy. So like that would be along the lines of like an uneasy feeling that would be deep down person within like Lucy even right now. So like the person who could leave my dream. Okay, so like the new friends right now that's for like Julia right now still sticking around with like the fairy tale even after like the whole week with like all of like the fight against like the battle Julia or like I'm definitely would be due to like I'm different two possibilities like either I'm different like after like the fight against like the final skill goes over like I'm different like at that point still I'm different like Grey had like totally seen like Julia that feeling so lonely but like Julia at that point like might have definitely so great, like I'm looking like definitely that with like the rain that as well that had like totally followed Julia around and all that like ending like I'm something that Julia might have deep down so badly wanted to be with Gray But like yeah, like the fact that like Julia had like was part of like the finance guild and basically all that like even though Julia badly didn't want to like open back to like the finance guild like yeah like Julia might have been afraid of like the Fairytale guild like accepting Julia. So like Julia might have like not said anything and might have been sitting lonely near to like the to where like the Fairytale guild members might have been at that point is like the scenario that I'm doing. So like Gray might have totally noticed Julia sitting there feeling like uneasy and lonely. So like Gray might have been able to like instantly read like Julia's mind and then like Gray might have totally told Makarov to like let Julia as well join like the Fairytale. This might have been one possible scenario as for like what might have happened. And like the reason for like Julia right now even sitting around with like the Fairytale even after like a whole week after like the fantasy fight. It's definitely one possible scenario for what might have happened. It's definitely one Fairytale. The other possible might be three ambitions, especially for like even right now to like the even after like whole week like Macro might have not allow Julia into like the Fairytale state or anything like Macro might not actually notice like Julia only sitting around and Julia for Julia even though Julia badly might want to be part of the Fairytale still like I'm with Julia might be totally afraid of like whether they the master will be accepting Julia or not or like even like the guild members even accepting Julia. Julia would be totally like feeling that like the possibility would be like less of that happening. So yeah, like Julia won't be able to like lead great definitely going to the embassy. So definitely and I was wondering like by the time Macro had defeated like Jose and basically the speech that Macro had given and basically through like great fight like basically like uh, even through great fight against like Julia and all that like by the time like the rain had stopped falling, Julia like I'm like Julia's like personality and like mindset, everything might have changed to like the side of good as well. Might have been what might have happened with new answers. So like Julia like right now like represent like even though her she would be badly wanting to like be with Grey, but like she would also be like that since then might have loved like the parent love and like seriously like the parent as well. She believes definitely and might be badly wanting to like join the best because of that reason as well is definitely also my different. So like I'm feeling like Julia, even right now after a whole week, like Julia right now sticking around like the best guild. Like the other positive that I'm feeling is for like even right now after the whole week, like Julia might know the like Macro might have know still now told Julia to like join the creative guild. Yeah, like Macro might have noticed like Julia sticking around. So macro intent might be to like basically want like the whole building of like the new fairy tale skill base would be over at that point for like macro to like only uh tell Julia to like join like the fairy tale skill would be like macro's plans between on range. So like the other topic that I'm talking about like I'm talking about like the and I'm talking Julia would be like literally helping out like the fairy tale skill members with like the building of that certainly using her magic powers or something like even basically even helping out like the fairy children of while being extremely insecure and afraid of like fairy children members will be getting angry with her if he actually openly helps them out and everything. It's like the other topic that I'm doing. So like definitely and macro we totally noticing all this stuff new yet like would be pretending as if like they didn't know stuff new. So like I mean, that's like being like the other topic you are like on like the fairy tale like base would be like building complete building process would be like finally complete like at that point and also something like macro also be walking up to it like Julia and like so he's telling Julia so like basically that like from this day on that she's like part of like the very relationship that that would be the only thing that like macro would be telling Julia because like macro would be like easily read like Julia's mind definitely my very much so conflicts like experience and everything is the new characters. But like that way, like I'm looking at Julia being after Lucy, like Julia being like the newest member of like the Paradise is like still in the scenario that I'm looking at. Okay, so like definitely one friends right now I've got like more of like catcher drawing of like basically what like the new Paradise in case is like look like perspectively like the scenario for like literally once like the new Paradise build base would be complete like I'm looking like as to like how it would be looking so people different like it will be a more futuristic kind of like a building. If you since it's has already been revealed that like they're planning on building it like even larger, like I'm looking like it's not just being larger, but like it will be more like a technologically advanced and futuristic. kind of like everything. This also with like extreme priority being given to its like defenses and like for like it's like the building itself being able to like counterattack against like and defend itself on its own, like the building itself like on its own being able to like defend itself against like all sorts of like powerful incoming attack. So like and I'm preferring definitely for like while like the old fairy tale while like old uh, fairy tale guild base was like an old kind of like kind had like the kind of like an old fashioned kind of like a house model like I'm looking like the case of like the new build case the building it would be like a futuristic kind of like a feel like I'm looking like um it would be like thoroughly present all throughout like the square inch of like the area of like the uh, new fairy tale will be definitely my preferred impression. So definitely that's like even like the material used to that will be getting that will be used to like even create like the hill base itself would be like of like a totally different material rather than and like mostly wood I think like which was used in like the old fair base hill base like the scenario that of the photo right. So like this is how like I'm looking like the new fair base hill base would be one thing would be like actually complete it's definitely my personal impression right. And so like that way, I'm just liberating like even though like the fairy tale did the thoroughly like the fan still like I'm still from like the recent attack of like the fan of skills that gave the fairy tale still so much trouble and destroying like the fairy tale skills like I'm doing like the fairy tale uh guild members are preferring like definitely a macro and like those who are like or building it and like it might be like maybe macro himself that might have decided with like the blueprint and everything is also going to be for like what like the blueprint would be like for like the new purpose and everything. So like I'm just as for like the blueprint itself, like I'm doing macro, even though macro will be like thoroughly just like the panel skills for everything they did, like I'm doing still macro and that still like a certain macro might have taken like serious inspiration from like the recent attack of like the Paris Guild, the giant uh Paris Guild base that can and that could totally attack and move around and everything like everything is macro and definitely taking inspiration from that and like definitely the new heritage build base like it's like creation would be hugely and heavily influenced by like those powers of like the mechanical power and like technological powers of like the and guild base. Definitely remember it. Yeah, like there will be influence from that guild base of the fan base. Yeah, like I'm doing like macro and team like doing it in a way that like it will be far more better and superior and way more advanced in terms of like toughness and in terms of like defense and everything in terms of like the game being able to move around that Liam was trying would be that a feature that Liam is different like macro would be totally adding to like the new characters in case like I'm preparing what like the new characters in this will be built like I'm looking like exactly like the parent field like I'm looking like it would be a build base that can definitely move around. It's definitely memorable. So like I'm looking yeah like maybe like the moving around being not being exactly like how like the fan build base has moved around, but like still empathy needs to be a build base that is not stationary and can totally move around while moving around in a more efficient and speedy manner as well. While like the user base will base empathy will be able to like move around in like more efficient and speedy manner and with like more proficient as well than like the kind of guild base that. Also, since I thought the magic transition, the labor thing like the for like the therapy, the new therapist will just one it's like building would be like a building box would be like something like at that point it's definitely being able to like move around and not being a stationary guild space like I'm looking still I'm looking like a rare possibility of like the maximum scenario being like basically the guild base itself like being able to like fly the entire place being able to like fly using like some sort of like specific magical items that like macro would be like spending a lot of money on and to be like adjusting to like the bottom of like the guild base through which like I'm looking like the using magic like I'm looking like the guild itself like the entire guild itself like being able to ascend and basically to be able to like fly around and go anywhere. So it's such an extreme feature like possibly uh, possibly like preparing like a remote possibility of like a piece of like matter of adding for like the new variants will be like the possibility that I'm looking where like a remote kind of like possibility that I'm looking where like unlike the kind of skill based like unlike the movement of like the phantom skill based like and like in the case of like the new circle in case like the movement being like no movement through land but through air. So like I mean such limitation like limitation when it comes to like movement like basically almost like suddenly getting all sorts of limitations like connecting to like getting days of movement like basically suddenly getting eliminated is like a remote possibility that I'm looking at the thing I'm frame. Okay, so like nothing about friends right now, but like low here right now, picking up like Lucy's like celestial piece like so the name right now it would be right now like I'm like it might have been through that like last fight that like Loki had during like that lack of like the Phantom skill like that fight I think like Loki had within like that struggle against like Phantom skill but like through that fight like I'm thinking definitely Loki might have overcame this like disturbance of that like fear connecting to self skill with the beat of minimum definitely that as like how that might have happened would be solely under like it might be through like basically since like it might have been once again this like inhibition or like fear connecting to like self that might have resulted in like I think like during that fight between like Loki and like between like basically like Loki getting like I think like defeated or like getting trapped in that bubble or kind of like thing and like the being able to like get away with like Luffy and all that like basically that might have created that absolute feeling of like regret and guilt within like Loki at that point. That basically it was due to this like inhibition that basically like Lucy had been like taken away with the along the lines like we might have felt that absolutely then that guilt and like that feeling of regret might have put Loki into like basically like overcoming this like inhibition connecting to self-skill without self-esteem and everything. Definitely my memory. So like I'm like still, I'm looking for like in the case of like Loki, I'm looking like Loki's backstory, which might have a lot of relevance to connecting to like Loki's like inhibition to like self and self development of the energy. So definitely that backstory I'm definitely bring would be like exactly a sad backstory where like Loki's like family might have Loki's like parents like might have died by the hand of like a celestial wizard, like in past, the Clement remedy. So like Loki might have witnessed this back in like the distant past, and that might have really created that absolute scar of like that absolute deep fear within like Loki connecting to any celestial wizard of that. So like whenever Loki, if any celestial wizard like you always ensuring to like only keep a distance because like each and every single circle wizard that he might have seen his life might have always reminded him of that exact celestial wizard that might have taken the life of the black and remember the rebels. So like certainly I was wondering like either Loki like having seen like the face of like that villain celestial wizard that might have taken the life of his black parents or like Loki might have only seen that celestial wizard from like the back and not seen like that celestial wizard's face. But like I'm also from definitely it would be like a woman might have definitely been a female celestial wizard, especially when the rebels. So definitely so like my favorite ammunition right now that basically so that it might be during that fight against like the kind of skills that I'm looking for like Loki might not only finally overcame with like information and see are connecting to like self with us. To a certain great extent, even though on fully it might be like a case with Loki right now, definitely remember this. So basically the whole reason for like Loki right now, even being able to like pick up the cells like piece of like Loki, it's definitely remember the yeah, like the fact that Loki doesn't give like the cell still keys to like Loki himself would be definitely due to like even while Loki would have overcame to a certain extent which like fear which might exist towards like as well the such like I'm looking still that fear would still be present to a certain extent but like I'm looking like still like the fear in like basically cutting like celestial keys and picking up celestial keys that part that much like I'm looking like Loki might have probably working that much of like the inhibition that we are like I'm doing like Loki might have probably working. And this will be the third reason for like Loki right now not really picking up like the sense keys, but also like telling like either Natsu or creating like to like basically give the sense keys to like Lucy. It's definitely my personal impression. So like the Logan premise right now it's for like in like Loki's like journey as like a fairy tale will remember like I'm looking like eventually in like instant future like Loki and Vulcan or they're running into like a situation or like running into a good like extremely villainous female celestial wizard in like the distant future and I'm looking like Loki maybe like fighting that sensitive wizard like Loki being it being in like a situation where like Loki himself would be having to like there will be like no one other where like the other certain members might be in like a trap kind of like a situation by that villain sensitive wizard. So like maybe like or like Natu and other thing like might be at like some other location trying to like bring down like some other enemy or like some sort of like a situation. So like I'm just totally being a situation where like it will be all down to like Loki at that point to like bring down that villain stick and still becomes like the scenario that so like while Loki will be fighting against that villain stick essentially because like maybe like some maybe I'm going to bring it to about this. Maybe like the moment like Loki will be seeing that self villain stick self into themselves at that point it's like Loki getting that absolute shock because like at that point itself like even though maybe it might be from Loki, even back in the Christmas past, might have not seen like the face of that female principal. They might have taken the life of that Loki's parent. Might be the case like I'm looking still like on seeing like the temperature on seeing that very same brilliant pixels just female principal without like Loki still recognizing her. That one was a scenario that I'm doing. Or like I'm thinking Loki fighting that female principal without electric female principal without like without realizing that she was the very same principal that had taken the life of like my parent. And basically, that as that fight progress eventually, like Loki, like suddenly finding out that basically that she was the one that had villainously taken the life, eliminated like Loki, like Paris, and like that is about. So like I'm looking like it will be only in that distant future fight that I'm looking through is like Loki will be like fighting on against like that villainous sensitive to that in this like Loki will be always fighting like Loki like the scenario that I'm on the negative thing that villainous strategies are like that is which are like I'm using all sorts of villainous strategies to like mentally weaken like Loki by like recording like that day when she had like in detail when she had like eliminated like Mickey's plans and all that like and so, you know, in that way to like to mentally weaken and open up that scar within like Loki coming through that incident, but like I'm doing still like I'm doing that way like I'm doing that way like Loki suffering a lot, but like I'm doing still finally Loki usually somehow managing to like totally overcome all that and then like Loki finally onboarding and defeating her like the scenario that I'm so like I'm thinking maybe like Loki still I'm thinking like Loki won't be taking some lives but like I'm thinking like Loki will be probably overpowering and defeating that sense to the point where like she I'm thinking that sense will be badly defeated and like will be badly injured and like I'm thinking like then maybe like even getting upset through like the home nights and everything is also like what we do and being sent to like the conflict to for like judgment and the thing is also like a development. So that way I'm looking it to be only through that fight against that villainous fiction regarding like substances of in which like Loki will be fighting against that like I'm looking it to be only once like Loki will be like defeating that villainous fiction with of that kind of like scenario to be like Loki will be at that point like finally being able to like fully overcome just like fear connecting to like something which are like doing scenarios that I'm suggesting in like it is so that the film trends right now so you're like this mysterious Karen was appeared and they think that we are in half like I'm sure definitely the black cat Karen like I'm definitely will be his her appearance and but like so they're resulting in that Loki probably going missing and disappearing from this point on definitely such a scenario that I'm thinking. So as soon as like the whole situation is like kind of and this over like I'm thinking straight away like the next situation happening for like the relative and that would be 100% would be like there is a care sudden disappearance from like Loki. Definitely one great and that's for like Karen, like like Karen will be like a self skill which are definitely one great. So like Karen would be like a self skill which are and not the skin set skill which are but might be like the self skill which are that might have eliminated like Loki's like parents in that system of definitely one great. So definitely this might and Loki might have witnessed this so like might be the reason for like the extreme fear connecting to like which are that the Loki might have had since then definitely one great. So definitely and I was comfortable in like least as for like this like his Karen like showing up exactly right now. I'm whispering would be definitely because of like Loki just right only right now that Loki like basically is like totally afraid of like self skill without than like how they keeps the distance from like self skill without like so it was only right now that like Loki has had like basically actually even touch like anything connected to like self-skill but which being like Lucy's like self-skill field like I'm definitely it might be only just now that like Loki might have found even though Loki might have been something like the entire whole week for like Lucy's self-skill field it might be only just right now that actually Loki might have found Lucy's self-skill field and like that might have Loki like being in contact with like uh the celebrity might have been what allowed like this like Karen who might have been the entire time might have been the brain is something for like Loki to be able to like for her to be able to like find it's like realistic self into that number the brain will be what like Karen would actually be for her to be able to like locate and find um Loki, like this might have been like the fact that like Loki right now has had touched and picked up like the self-will piece belongs to like music. The minimum frame of the code. Okay, so like the minimum frame right now that it seems like it was like mysterious gap Karen's like this connected to like Loki's like happening right now already itself like that's something like definitely so like a precision like the fandom the fight against like the fantasy like that was like so extremely kind of like went on for like such a long period. Like I'm remembering definitely the whole so there is a solving of like Loki's like whole situation of like Karen. Like I'm remembering like that whole fight and the defeat of Karen. Like I'm remembering like that all happening without much uh that fight being like not being like an extremely long fight like the fight against like the fantasy recently like the scenario that happened. The situations like soon after like the fight against like fantasy that's like the scenario that happened. Like so definitely the scenario that I'm exploring right now is definitely for like natural that totally bringing that sensibilities of like Lucy to Lucy right now is like the scenario that I'm learning. And at that point I come thinking Lucy will get only happy in like basically feeling happy in like thinking getting that some sensibilities which like Lucy might have since it already one week has an entire week has passed like Lucy might be only thing that basically she might have permanently lost her sensibilities and won't be ever able to like, get it back. Would be around like she might have to like she might be like she's be or joy that like basically once like Natsu will bring back stuff and this game. So like I'm looking like Lucy at that point asking Natsu was like where Natsu found it and at that point I was like Natsu telling Lucy that like it wasn't me who found it that but like it was like Loki that had like first and then their whole week and found like the sensitivities and gave it to me with the along the lines like I'm putting Natsu telling Lucy and at that point and I'm looking like then I'm looking like without much great delay like I'm looking uh like something like and at that point I'm something like Lucy by then would be like would have like probably recovered enough to like the point where like Lucy would be enough to like the point where like Lucy might be like probably the price to like Daisy to go up to like Loki and thank Loki for like finding like Lucy's like self which is definitely one of the editions. Especially because of like Lucy definitely would be well fully aware by now that basically about like so Loki has some sort of like a disturbance or like inhibition something like comes to this definitely my brain. So like I feel like yeah, like the fact that like Loki that very same Loki had basically being like the one to like find looking themselves for a whole weekend to find like Lucy's like sensibilities and for that like might be like probably creating that feeling of absolute depth within like Lucy towards like Loki. So like Lucifer might be undergoing being so adamant that like at that point and telling Natsu that she herself has to like go up to like Loki and like thank Loki for like finding the keys like the scenario that I'm doing. So like I'm just like by the time like so like I'm doing like Lucy around like Natsu and the others like basically going up to like the side where like the whole building of the fairy the new fairy is basically like happening and they are like considering them searching for Loki and them asking around and asking Macro as well as like that and all of them like all sort of characters you know that like the Loki is so like I'm thinking none of them will be like no but like no so like I'm just like at that point like itself like I'm just like Luffy alone would be like probably feeling kind of like feeling off while all the remaining characters guild members would get only casually playing it off like the appearance of like Loki as like casually playing it off as like basically uh, as if along the lines of like Loki might have gone out by himself and would be like that the next day or something. Maybe along the lines of doing that leaving it casually, but like I'm looking at that disappearance of like sudden disappearance of Loki and to bring like disturbing like Lucy like Lucy will be feeling up like something is not right. So like I'm feeling like while like all the parents members will be only feeling like Lucy like show up like the next day to help with the building of like any days of inverted and everything like I'm looking like the next day as well looking up showing up like the scenario that so like it will be only at that point that like at that point Lucy will be definitely feeling like extremely as of like Loki is in like some like the positive like something possibly having happened to like Loki especially because of like Lucy being like a sensitive wizard and like Loki inhibition to like sensitive wizard and all this like I'm doing like since like Lucy was like the one that performed like Loki has recently through the self skill he's had basically helped out. Like we definitely was looking like Lucy's mind would be totally filled with the thoughts of like Loki. The positive like something having happened to like Loki, like the scenario that I'm feeling. And I'm looking like the remaining characters members as well at that point will be totally kind of like feeling worried for Loki, like the scenario that I'm feeling. So like I'm looking like since like Lucy is like a self skill wizard and I'm looking definitely uh Lucy, I'm looking at that point, like bring out one of her newest, like one among her newest self-filters, and I'm looking like using that self-filter, like I'm looking to somehow managing like search for like Loki, like the scenarios that I'm thinking. So like that way, like I'm looking like that self-filter, like pointing the direction where like Loki has gone to, like the scenario that I'm looking. So like at that point, I'm looking like Lucy totally telling us that she's definitely going to even though like uses like injuries and wounds can be like not fully recovered, like I'm doing like it still would have by now recovered to a great extent with like the scenario that I'm doing. So like Lucy and the kind of living element that like she's definitely going to search for Loki. So like I'm going definitely that's when the others like totally agreeing to it and I was like observing like totally focused on like the and having to so much to like contribute into like the building of like the new strategic buildings. I'm looking for the macro telling even though I was doing maybe outside that point when we want it like go like natural rules. Like at that point like I'm looking macro probably telling them so that basically to like for like macro I'm looking at that point given the order to like Natsu and Lucy that basically like it would be like the group of like Lucy, Natsu and Kire that only have to like basically go and search for like and search for like okay will be along the lines that macro will be playing and so like I'm doing that way that once gray and the team of the gray not to because like macro I'm maybe not feeling that much worried at that point about like the city or of like location to be only the next day within the day alone like me so like I'm gonna like that way like the team along with like the team of like Natsu Lucy and Gray. Like I'm looking definitely Julia as well. That definitely at that point when you stealthily that would stealthily be following them. It's like it's only due to like Gray's presence. So definitely on frame so definitely I'm looking like that way following like the direction that like the cell skill of like Lucy will be pointing at like I'm looking them totally like the spirit like that when leading them to like a location uh some distance some great distance away and I'm looking like by the time they will be making it there like I'm looking like them would be like totally seeing like I'm looking like the like still look at care and like basically keeping Loki in like some kind of like situation and causing suffer to like Loki like scenario that I'm looking and I was different definitely like those like still with that like Karen will be also having like henchmen as well. It's definitely memory ambition. So and definitely aesthetic memory ambition look like Karen will be like the very would be essential with her and she would be like most likely like the person that might have taken the life of like those parents as well. It's definitely memory ambition. So definitely maybe that she might have since then like even though Rocky might have managed to like escape like she might have figured eventually that basically that uh that the about like the extent of like them having a son and basically like this sentence which might be like okay since then might have been uh trying to like eliminate Loki as well since then it's and searching hard for like Loki since then it's new and so it might be so in the present since like right now Loki had made contact with like Lucy Celestial he's like that like I'm looking at that point that like she might have like Muslim that might have been able to like find Loki at that point might have been what might have happened maybe like Korean person so definitely that way like I'm looking in that fight like I'm feeling like it should not be an extremely long fight or anything but like I'm going to feel like that sensitive with Karen having like bunch of hints from the top hints and then like the fight happening between like the team of like Lucy Natsu as well as like Gray and Julia versus like the henchmen of like Karen. And then I'm looking at in that fight like I'm looking into the like basically that would be definitely choosing her physical powers that would be sitting and train Loki is like the scenario that I'm putting. Yet like I'm putting like Lucy getting attacked by like henchmen of Karen, much like the scenario that I'm putting. So like Lucy, the group of like Lucy, Natsu, Grey, and like Julia will be totally having their hands full with like against like the great number of enemy opponents at that point, like scenario that I'm putting. So like at that point, have a different like it would be like a situation where Loki has to like actually Loki at that point would be remembering that that back during like the Phantom Guild fight, like basically like Loki's inhibition causing Lucy to get taken away by Gajeel and all that. So like I'm looking like during that point Loki would be staring at like while Loki would be like consumed by the fear and frozen with like fear like consuming Loki at that point looking and seeing Lucy as well as like Nathan also struggling and to fight back against like all fighting hard against like all these like fishmen of Karen. So like I'm looking at that point, I'm looking like okay, totally starting to totally totally faces fears and really fight against like the justice with that Karen. Against whom Loki is so senior player of Stephanie everything. Just like I'm looking like in that fight initially after the black Karen probably or for Loki and like causing a lot of suffering to Loki initially. Even an easily man was like the scenario that still I'm the it would be like Lucy that would be like giving Loki at that point Loki would be badly getting defeated in like the first half of like fight uh, between like Karen and Loki's like the scenario that I'm doing. And at that point I was like to be Lucy that would be like while fighting against like Lucy's like opponent like I'm doing like to be Lucy that would be giving that absolute confidence for like Loki and that morale boost to like Loki. Certainly remember it. So and definitely that way like I'm going like it will be like to Lucy giving that absolute boost of confidence to like Loki that I'm looking Loki would be like finally overcoming the like fear and like would be actually fear like finally uses like actual core powers against that self-belief of care like the scenario that I'm looking and that way Loki finally is struggling his way into like or indicating care and like the scenario that still Loki is not taking care of like but like Loki will be partly or indicating care and like that way Sharon will be getting arrested and basically will be eventually being brought to like the council is like the scenario that I was like the same circle with the Sharon might have not only from the kind of operation might have not only taken the life of Loki's parent back in the president but she might have that sense still with her Sharon might have that done all the villains things in that system path and like another that definitely she might be a wanted person as well. Those were the new experience to go like that way. Loki himself eventually bring her to the council, asking her and bring her to the council is in the scenario that so that way Karen being sent to the some by order to be sent to the some by the council is within the scenario that I'm in the region of the so with that Loki is we are come and individual connecting to the without really permanently being over from that going on the scenario that I'm with yes, sir. But we have friends right now that they listen to Lucy's birthday. I'm different Lucy's letter saying that I can go home. It would be definitely Lucy, getting to go home and if you return back home and stay there indefinitely. Or to basically save the fairy tale skills from concern or anything. Won't be the case of definitely one friends right now. Lucy's intent behind going home would be definitely definitely since it's her birthday I'm with with looking memory of the past coming rushing into Lucy I'm doing definitely Lucy right now staying in the Lucy so she's since it's a good birthday since Lucy will be totally remembering how old she is on that very day so I'm doing this is also remembering the uh, years that have passed since she had left at home. So I'm looking definitely Lucy that's Lucy's whole situation as well. That with the attack from the band skills on the skills according to the orders of concern and everything so Lucy the different may would be in an extremely confused and hence extremely disturbed state. So Lucy would be desperate to know what is it that first of all Lucy would want to know want that absolute confirmation if it in fact if like Jose was actually true about like being concerned that like being like the person behind like that lack of responsibility don't like the and if in fact is like to confirm that and really if that was in fact the truth then like why exactly concerned we had absolutely no time for like Lucy back in like the past like really for like why concerned product really want to meet Lucy right now. Sort of really want Lucy back right now. That we need to find out the truth behind the like already that absolute disturbed feeling within like Lucy for like Lucy not knowing the truth behind all the remember Lucy might want like know the truth and want that confirmation kind of different so like even while Lucy will be like strongly feeling that basically that like concern would definitely with like concern that like concern would have definitely have changed even after like all these years passing that concern would have definitely not changed into like a good person. Would be around the line like basically like strongly feeling yet like I'm looking like as like a doctor like I'm looking deep down like Lucy the doctor like Lucy like would be the friendly desiring for that like for like concern to like to have that change and to be like a totally different person and like being kind and like a totally different person and being a good person and basically for that thought in Lucy would be totally desperate for such a scenario that I'm doing that desperation might have caused Lucy to like totally ignore that strong red flag kind of like a feeling that like Lucy would be totally feeling connecting to that conflict that basically that like he would have definitely not changed. And basically that desperation and quickly all that coupled with like it being like this is perfect might have resulted in like basically uh right now like deciding to like head back home. So like that letter saying I will go home would be definitely just like losing sort of thing that basically they will definitely be able to like so casually be able to like run back home and basically like not only see concerned but like see her mother as well. And like Lucy will be like so desperate as well to like see her mother like because like of like so many years probably having that past and like Lucy might have left her home with me was right. So like Lucy would be like so desperate to like see her mother again and basically Lucy would be also desperate to like find out the truth behind like the concern situation the situation with like her father's concern and everything to remember right. So like Lucy did only think that basically to go up to her home, see her mother, to just casually go back to her home, see her mother and then meet her father concern and basically find out like why she wants her back and basically if it's like something that like Lucy have no agreement towards like and if like concern still haven't changed like definitely still regardless at that point for like Lucy to like straight away say her absolutely no to concern and basically for like Lucy to like be able to like casually return back to like the fairy tale skill just like that would be along the lines like Lucy would be only feeling that to like spend her birthday at like her home would be the only hidden of like Lucy right now as like she is like right now on the train returning back home. The remember the train right? So definitely to give the reason for like Lucy even writing such a bold statement that like I will go home in that letter is definitely remember the train. So definitely but like I'm looking definitely the scenario to be like once like Lucy will be like returning back home and entering her home and at that point like definitely concern will be straight away reported that like Lucy has returned back home. So like straight away like I'm looking that concern would be that totally Lucy would be like totally asking concern as to like why a little bit first Lucy after like entering home like first the person that Lucy is looking first to be like Lucy's mother is definitely and even while she would be like comfortable, like this is mother on seeing Lucy would be like extremely instantly overjoyed on seeing Lucy and everything like we hunting Lucy, like the scenario that I'm looking. Yet like there will be like after that like Lucy's mother will be totally remembering like the situation with like concern as to like why like I'm sure Lucy's mother would be well and fully aware as to like what concerns in the person is totally up to involving Lucy's doing so like there will be that absolute sadness and fear within in like the eyes and in that facial expression of like Lucy's mother at that point. It's like it's not that important. So like Lucy will be at that point asking her mother as to like what's wrong, like uh why is she tense along this such lines of responsibility at that point asking her mother. So like before her mother would even be able to like reply on the like concern showing up. That point is like scenario where and concern would be like revealing and Lucy at that point would be asking. concern as to like why he have like got that basically along this lines. And after that, Lucy would be also telling concern that basically asking concern if of concern that basically has made like the kind of attack like the fairy tale just to like have Lucy back to bring Lucy back to like the comfort home. The along the lines Lucy would be asking with like a serious face to like concern and concern will be straight away saying confirming that like yes it was him that had like cleared like the fan to destroy that fairy tale still. And I was going to at that point telling like making that only topic more suffering to like for Lucy and telling Lucy that like it's like an absolute embarrassment to along this line concern telling Lucy that like an absolute embarrassment to like have just talk like basically the part of like such a girl like the Phantom Kid, which is not like you know definitely stating rememberation there would be like noble guild definitely remembering so like where like each of like the member and like the master of that guild will be all noble definitely remembering so like to have Lucy he not part of the guild and being part of that guild like the fairy tale guild will be like totally like this is father like at that point realistically telling Lucy is like such an embarrassment to him and long it's like something like answer telling Lucy at that point and Lucy that like probably Lucy enraging Lucy to the extreme is like the scenario that I'm doing. So like at that point like Lucy asking concern with like an angry tone and like he stays like Lucy asking concern as to like why he so badly wanted Lucy back. And I was like at that point I was like concerned over revealing about either for considering the menstruation either about like a political marriage like involving Lucy or like I'm going to like totally use Lucy to so that like he could like uh get Lucy to like the position of being like a council member to like to do one of these two possibilities so definitely was very embarrassing. So definitely at that point it's like an angry Lucy like straight away telling no to like concern in this like case. Unlike in like the past like this time Lucy won't be that much afraid of like concern, especially once like Lucy will be finding out the truth about like the attack of the Banfield and everything like something behind it. Like once like Lucy will be finding out the truth like I'm like Lucy won't be having like any more fear towards concern on top of that like Lucy will be having that actually raised towards like concern at that point. It's definitely very raised. Especially when the emergence. So like at that point like while Lucy will be saying that absolute no to like concern to like refuse to like agree to like concern. We should like and I will like Lucy will be like straight away saying that no and like Lucy will be there stepping out of like towards like the front door and plan while deciding to like leave her home or like right then itself and the like concern totally ordering the like the guard the definitely great number of guards in like concern like trying to get the number of chapters like home itself I'm delivering would be like palace and everything like there will be a great number of guards in that home as well. Setting even guard with like strong management powers and everything is definitely impressive. So like I'm like convert straight away ordering the guards to like capture and bring Lucy into like that into like the home like the scenario that I'm doing and like concerned would have already prepared like a huge case like to converting like the home to totally to totally trap Lucy because like concern might totally have that feeling that they feel it like the person like Lucy is saying like like the like Lucy definitely won't be agreeing to like the people of like concern. So like the possibility into like agreeing to like concern might have already prepared like huge kind of like a person within like concern form and developing like concern hopefully putting Lucy into that like person and talking to the office using like magic box and like the scenario that I'm seeing and concern even taking away and ordering the guards like even take away like Lucy's research like the scenario that I'm looking for. So like just much to like the scenario that way like Lucy getting trapped in like concern home and simultaneously with this like still captain Karen showing up like home typical manipulation would be like a self still with a who might have taken the life of like Loki's like parents and like with the past and definitely able to like just like self still just like it can like start showing up like would be definitely resulting in like Loki's disappearance as well simultaneously. It's definitely going to be like so like I'm like while like the in like the current present like while the whole like feeling as if like the whole but he was quite like over and like he took run back to like the 20th field like at that point itself like he's instantly once again getting this point but like this time not really like the disappearance of like will not leave them shockingly finding out about like Lucy having gone to her home, but like also towards like concern towards like surveillance concern, but like also that the fact about like even Loki's like disappearance as well. Like simultaneously, I'm like the very day is most likely finding out about like maybe finding out about these two things and things, and that way like instantly like the piece of like the another the characters get getting installed straight away. Getting installed straight away. It's like the scenario that I'm looking. So like I'm looking that way. Like I'm looking maybe like the fairy and mask macro like of the portrait like the fairy tale skills the thing in like the fairy tale the number of in like the fairy tale skills so it gets members into like a team A and a team B and for like team B to like search for like Loki and like team A to like search for like towards to head towards like Lucy's home to bring Lucy back like the scenario setup. Because like the William would be like macro would be like absolutely strongly feeling macro as well as like the majority of the members would be strongly feeling especially since like his father concerned definitely they will be absolutely certain that like it would definitely might be like Loki's power that might have hold on like the random skill to like attack like and destroy like the very different and everything and hopefully take Lucy back. So certainly because of all the written numbers like macro would be absolutely certain would be having that strong feeling that like Lucy would be like once like Lucy will be making it to her home like at that point like Lucy will be getting some sort of bite and some would be a strong feeling that like macro would be having. So like that way macro like at least getting like that to the first to like to a team B and team A and team A would be like a team in which like another like Natsu Abra as well as like another in which like Natsu Abra and Grey uh, would all be like for them especially when we train this. So like I'm doing like them totally as team A and like basically heading off to towards like by train towards like where Lucy's home would be to like bring Lucy back. Uh, and basically the team be heading off to find like like the scenarios that I'm looking at. So like I'm just by the time like the whole Natsu's like team A would be like finally bringing back Lucy to like from like Lucy's home like while Natsu's team A would be like fighting off like the guard at like Confirm's home and basically finally would be bringing back like saving and bringing back like the innocent Lucy to like the guild going to bring like at that point I'm looking like and macro would be at that point would be like staying there at like the place at the vacation bar like regular basis like being with like I'm looking macro not being part of like any of these teams and it's not macro be staying there to watch our because of like them being in the corporate building like there are new days like and macro starting like stand down there. Definitely one of the so like by the time like Nancy's team will just turn back to that Lucy at that point I'm just like them shortly finding out like the team D still hadn't now returned back. So like I'm looking like at that point like I'm looking like uh at that point definitely Lucy definitely would be like okay worried for like Lucy definitely remember everything. So yeah, and beyond finding out that but maybe it would be at that point that and maybe I was bring it would be at that point that like Natsu would be like even telling Lucy that basically it was doctors that was like that had basically like found like that had searched for like an entire week and found Lucy's like self like to be along the line like Natsu will be telling Lucy at that point of like scenario that so like if Lucy would be like absolutely determined to like basically straight away head off towards like where like the team they had gone to and they need to find and save Loki. It's like the scenario that I'm looking. So like that way like Lucy and like the team is basically straight away heading off to like to find Loki like the scenario that I'm looking. So like those much like the scenario that I'm looking. Okay, so like the new premiere right now is for like Lucy on the they're returning back all the way back to her towards like going to like to the collapse of stand towards like concern and basically to give that proper goodbye and leave like definitely that produces like even though like right now Lucy's like making her great speech to like concern and the still definitely since like Lucy right now doesn't even have herself still keys with her like about which like Lucy might have completely forgotten and like Lucy might have even like on Lucy's birthday like I'm sure, like Lucy's thought might have been filled with like the thoughts of concern and basically for like Lucy might have definitely wanted to like also confirm if that concern has like changed or like if that concern is like the very same person that she knew in like from her past, from her distant past. Like regardless of the age that like concern had changed, like concern Lucy might have actually had fixed in her mind to like basically to only go back to concerns just to give that proper goodbye and basically without running away, like basically for that time to like basically be perform like definitely might have been like the intent of like Lucy, even if like concern had changed, like Lucy might have still left concern after like telling goodbye to concern. Definitely like due to that Lucy might have also had this like tension as well of like really seeing concern after like so long. And to people like the last time Lucy might have been uh, concerned, like her father concerned, like she might have been extremely afraid of that. Her father concerned, so like the police, there will be that uh, like that star of like that fear within like Lucy. So like I'm just because of all this reason, like I'm just like Lucy might have completely forgotten about like the fact that she doesn't have herself still peace with her while she had like basically left back to her home to like meet concern and tell her goodbye. Still remember the ambition. So like Lucy even right now to like the person like as like Lucy right now like declaring her stand to like concern and making that speech like Lucy even right now to be like okay, you might have forgotten about like her not having herself in peace with her. Still remember the ambition. So like Lucy would be like okay in an all confident manner of saying that basically will be feeling strong and basically that would be objectively that basically regardless that she will be straight away be able to like with like which is like certain level of strength with herself just get and everything like this is straight away able to like go up to her home and like give that proper goodbye and straight away be able to like march out of her home absolutely would be along the lines like Lucy would be totally feeling due to that Lucy not being aware that she doesn't have her might have totally forgotten about like her, having her to peace with her right now with the human premise. So like I'm going like up like this is like current piece of her stand towards like towards like concern like concern like really finally telling that goodbye to like concern and basically to see will be like slowly like walking away from that concern with that absolute intent to like also make like Lucy's mother before she leaves. So like I'm doing like right as like Lucy will be done with her peace to concern and like Lucy at that point I'm doing turning and basically walking away from concern. And at that point I'm doing concern straight away ordering that the guard like calling out for like the guards to capture Lucy and stop Lucy. So at that point, I would like Lucy would be like totally that Cookie might have been totally expecting something like that maybe. So like Lucy at that point said like with that absolute peace would be like totally like would be trying to like pull out her self peace, but like I'm going it to be at that point that I'm like Lucy would be like having that shocking realization of that remembrance that basically this entire time Lucy just have like a self peace with her like that's the scenario that I'm doing. And straight away, like without the self is like Lucy not being able to do anything at all, and they will straight away that Lucy getting captured by the guards and like getting put into like some kind of like situation within like the within like the home of the concern is like the scenario that I'm doing. More like I'm thinking maybe that Lucy being getting on concern orders like Lucy maybe being locked up in like from the outside in that very same home of like Lucy that she might have been locked up in like the campus when like Lucy was only when like during Lucy's like even younger basis definitely remembering and that too exactly according to like the orders of concern like so like I'm looking like in that room while being in that so that's like scenario that I'm doing and at that point in that room while they will be in like that locked up situation in that in her actual home room that in like that home like I'm talking like you see it would be like remembering like the thing she used to do back in like the distant past when she would be getting locked up in that cinder man of like in the home the things she used to do and able to like everything that she would be seeing in that room. I don't know the room itself being like so familiar and being that nostalgia to like maybe like I'm looking at on top of that like I mean like everything in that room would be like each and every single thing object and everything that you will be seeing that room would be called like a remembrance to like that scar of like pain of like all the sufferings that Lucy has gone through back in the distant past like living well like music seeing each and every like expecting each and everything object and everything in that room and basically to be the very same objects and basically remembering uh, and basically of like the past, like Lucy's like all those past memories coming rushing in, and like Lucy remembering all those past memories of like suffering of like poor Lucy one by one by inspecting each object in that room with like the scenario that I'm doing everything and frame. Also, the mention right now as for like Lucy's mother Layla, that like as to like how Layla might have died, like I'm doing that. Lots of my friends said that like Layla might have died in the distant past on like that very day that like Lucy had ran away from her home. It's certainly my redemption. That exactly might have been also the reason that might have injured that in like Layla's death as well. Certainly my redemption because like I think or like that like Layla might have definitely helped Lucy among away from concern back then when like the distant past. Especially when might have been definitely Layla that might have helped Lucy run away, especially when the ambitions, because like Layla definitely desperately might have wanted like Lucy to like be free from concern, especially when the ambitions. So, and for like Lucy to be able to like live up like the way she wants like. So like I'm definitely and Layla might be definitely like Layla someone who has such a mindset like Layla is like Lucy's mother. Definitely I'm like Layla might have been like it's the but like I'm definitely Layla's marriage might have been through a political marriage, and I'm definitely Layla might have even to like even till that say she was like to like the very last day that like Layla was like alive, like I'm like Layla might have regretted not being able to like say no to that political marriage. It's like remember the so like that might have been like the very same kind of little situation with like Lucy's case where like I'm like Layla's like father back then might have only instilled that fear into like Layla even from a young age. I might have controlled Layla with that absolute fear by instilling that fear, and might have resulted in that Layla not being not having that the courage to like say no to her father and not being able to like run away, especially with her ambition. So like that way Layla might have ended up into being part of like that political marriage, and that way ended up might have ended up getting married to like concern might have been what might have happened, especially with her ambition. So Layla might have regretted that 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 she wasn't able to like say no, and basically she wasn't able to like run away from that political marriage until her until like the very last day that she was alive. Definitely so like as to like how exactly Layla might have died like on like might have been on that very day. Layla might have definitely been like witnessing like with like Lucy as like Lucy grew up like Lucy going through like the very same kind of like situation as that of like uh Layla Layla as like Layla grew up definitely my dream. So like that might have been mostly that Lucy is like suffering and pain through concern might have been causing that much of like an extreme suffering within like Layla as well. Definitely my dream. So like eventually like it might have been Layla that might have given Lucy like the courage to basically to run away might have been what might have happened. It's definitely not very much. So definitely like that might have been what might have happened. So like especially then like once like Lucy had ran away, like and once like concerned with like the help of Layla, and once like concerned had found out about this like at that point, I'm very concerned might have been extremely angry with like Layla because like even back then like I'm concerned might have been seeing Lucy as like uh, uh, as like the black person that like concerned can eventually like through a political marriage they could like totally use to like basically to expand hugely expand his like fortune. So like Answer might have been seen to see as like such an individual even from way back then in like Vincent Barker. Like that might have resulted in like so like I'm looking at like Layla's self like they might have like escape from concern in like Western past, and that might have resulted in like concern being getting extremely enraged with like Layla that like concern might have attacked that took out that rage to on rage and frustration towards like Layla by attacking Layla might have been what might have happened. So like I'm thinking even though concern might have definitely not back then might have not attacked Layla with like the intent to like take Layla's life, but like I'm thinking that still that attack that concern might have resulted in like Layla totally like ending up dying might have been what might have happened. That's definitely the premise. So like I'm thinking like what might have happened would be like after like Josie running away from home, like I'm looking like definitely like the next day like Josie might have like said when you said that this is like Lucy is from an extremely important family, like the Harshiliya family, that uh, popular family like the Harshiliya family. So like I'm looking at the very next day after like Lucy escaping on concern like the second the very next day while Lucy might have checked the newspaper. If like Lucy might have been checking the newspaper to see if like there's any news about like the Lucy running away from like the uh, like running away from concern like so unprovable like while Lucy had checked the newspaper, Lucy might have been on the way next day after like Lucy running away and escaping like one concern like the very next day itself like in the newspaper like Lucy might have had like that Lucy might have not seen any news about like her running away, but like I'm looking instead like in the shocking news that like Lucy might have been like the news about like Layla, Lucy's mother, like basically having died. Definitely mandatory impression. So that might have been what might have happened. It's definitely my primary approach to like and my primary approach was that like the systems went to like the very person like after like this year, actually after like this year right now, even talking to that concern and basically just even realizing that concern haven't changed at all like even to the person like number one like this even to the person who is of doing that basically her mother Layla that might have been due to might have been concerned that might have taken the life of like Lucy's mother later. We want like Lucy will be believing even to the process. It's definitely my personal theory and concept.